Crime is surging across this country. Murder rates are rising, assault rates are rising, carjacking rates are rising. Last year, 12 major American cities broke records, homicide rates. Portland, Indianapolis, Toledo, Rochester, St. Paul, Tucson, Albuquerque, Louisville, Columbus, Baton Rouge, Austin, and Philadelphia. What do those 12 cities have in common? Every single one of them is run by Democrats, all of them. The crime that we are seeing surging across this country is a direct result of Democrats' soft-on-crime policies. Joe Biden nominated not one but two of the leading advocates in the country for abolishing the police to senior roles at the U.S. Department of Justice. Every single Senate Democrat voted to confirm two of the leading advocates of abolishing the police to senior positions at the U.S. Department of Justice. When Democrats engage in anti-police rhetoric, when they demonize police officers, it has consequences. President Biden nominated Rachel Rollins to be the U.S. Attorney of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Rachel Rollins is one of the many Soros DAs who, as district attorney in Suffolk County, put out a list of 15 crimes her prosecutors were not allowed to prosecute. When you have soft-on-crime Democratic DAs that are releasing violent criminals on shockingly low bail, those violent criminals go out and they commit violent crime yet again. And in the face of skyrocketing crime, crime that has women and men across this country deeply, deeply concerned for the safety of their family, the White House press secretary laughs about it. Laughs about what crime? What are you talking about? This administration is so out of touch, they don't understand that when people are getting carjacked, when their homes are threatened, their lives are threatened, that violent crime is real, and when you attack and demonize police officers over and over again, it has a consequence. It is wrong. And I got to say, at any point, Senate Democrats, one Senate Democrat could have stood up and said enough is enough. If one Senate Democrat on the Judiciary Committee had said no, these advocates for abolishing the police would not be senior members of the Department of Justice. If one Senate Democrat on the Judiciary Committee had said no, Rachel Rollins, this incredibly soft-on-crime Soros DA, who effectively abolished the police by ordering her prosecutors not to prosecute drug crimes, not to prosecute resisting arrest, not to prosecute trespassing. We're seeing in stores across the country looters breaking in, mocking the law because Democrats won't prosecute them. It's not right, it's not fair, and we need to keep people safe.
Senator Marshall.
Thanks, Tim. All right. I got two words for America today: crack pipes. Crack pipes, not crack pots. Did any of us ever think, sitting in our senior year in high school at our government class, that we'd be part of a nation where its government gives crack pipes out as a tool to, in just a permissive society? I don't think any of us would have ever thought that our socialistic government would do something like that. As I finished up some town halls this past weekend, 15 town halls, I can tell you I've never seen Americans so upset. I've never seen so much fervor. I thought Joe Biden had bottomed out at the end of last year, but I'm telling you, he's still searching for the bottom of his popularity right now. As I listen to my folks at these town halls, I want you to listen to what they're telling me. This is what Americans see. Americans see 2 million people, maybe 6 million people cross our border illegally last year, and they see this administration reward them with an all-expenses-paid vacation trip to any American city of their choosing. America sees riots and vandalism, and this administration applauds them. America sees looting and shoplifting, and this administration says don't prosecute. This America saw over 5 tons of fentanyl cross our border last year. Just imagine 5 big semi-trucks loaded with a ton of fentanyl. And I remind people, 1 teaspoon of that fentanyl could kill thousands of people. And like my dad, the police officer, said, crime and drug abuse go hand in hand. It's like peanut butter and jelly. The more drug crimes you have, the more crime we're going to have as well. And then finally, America sees our law enforcement officers being told to turn their back on violent crimes and not pursue. America sees the White House and their party turn their back on their law enforcement officers. America sees weak-kneed judges and attorneys, prosecuting attorneys. And then, back to our crack pipes. What they're seeing, what Americans are seeing, is insane policy. It's demented policy. It's unthinkable. It's unconscionable. Our president could change all of this if he had the will.
Johnson.
So you've heard some statistics, record crime rates, record murders, but I don't think we talk enough about the victims and their loved ones. About a week ago, Jen Psaki, the spokesperson for President Biden, was doing some press event, and she was monitoring the different news stations, and she came across Fox and said, here's Fox. And one of Fox's news anchors was talking about soft on crime consequences. And then she kind of giggled and said, what does that even mean? Let me tell you what it means. Last week we held an event here on our open border, about the catch and release on our open border. There's a real nice article in Just the News a couple days ago. Let me just read a couple examples of those consequences that Jen Psaki and apparently this administration is giggling about. In Alabama's Chilton County, 2 illegal immigrants ages 27 and 28 have been charged in the murders of 3 adults found shot and burned in an SUV. Another recent case, a Florida father believed he was going to foster parent what he believes a 16-year-old minor from Honduras. That minor was not a minor. That minor killed him. In Florida, a 5-year-old girl riding in her mother's car was crushed to death when an illegal immigrant from Honduras crashed into the car. In Harris County, Texas, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador is charged with exiting a vehicle during a routine traffic stop and fatally shooting a sheriff's deputy in the face last month. Last March, 13 immigrants were killed when an SUV driven by their smuggler crashed into a tractor-trailer in California. More recently, a 59-year-old mother and her 22-year-old daughter were killed in Texas when their car was T-boned by a speeding vehicle trying to smuggle illegal aliens into the country. Those are the victims. Now, those are the victims of the catch and release, the open border on our southwest border. But we also have catch and release in our criminal justice system. And there's some victims I'd like to talk about that are pretty close to my heart that didn't have to die, that didn't have to have their lives forever altered. And those are the victims of the Waukesha Christmas Parade. They were murdered, not by an SUV, CNN, by a murderer who had just run over the mother of his child and was released on $1,000 bail so he could murder. And that's what he did. He murdered 8 people in Waukesha, injured another 62 during a Christmas parade. You barely hear it on the news anymore. I guess it was the wrong murderer and the wrong victims to have the media pay attention for more than a couple days. But as bad as the victims in terms of the people who lost their lives and their loved ones, and the people injured and their lives forever altered, I can't help but think of the little children sitting on the curb expecting to see Santa Claus and instead watching people being slaughtered right in front of them. Can you imagine that? Do you ever think about that? Do you think President Biden does? Do you think these soft on crime DAs in Democrat-governed cities think about that? They ought to think about that.